A Boeing 747 was fully ready for takeoff on the runway. Amid dense fog, the pilot pushed the thrust levers forward, turned on the headlights, and the aircraft had now crossed takeoff speed, a point of no return. But at that exact moment, a shadow began to emerge through the fog. It was another Boeing 747, approaching from the opposite direction on the same runway, just meters away. What happened next is almost too terrifying to imagine. The question is, how did it come to this? What was air traffic control doing? And what was the one small mistake that led to the deadliest accident in aviation history? This tragic story took place in Spain's Canary Islands and is now remembered around the world as the Tenerife Airport Disaster. Welcome again to a Zemflix video. This story begins a day before the accident, March 26, 1977, when Pan Am Flight 1736, a Boeing 747 jumbo jet, took off from Los Angeles Airport. After a stop in New York to pick up more passengers, its final destination was Las Palmas, a city in the Canary Islands across the Atlantic. It was a chartered flight and fully booked, mostly with elderly passengers who were going to enjoy a cruise ship in Las Palmas. Las Palmas is the capital of the Canary Islands, located about 100 kilometers off the coast of Morocco, and is known for its tropical weather. But in 1977, political tensions were simmering in the Canary Islands. A group called MPAIAC was campaigning for the Canary Islands' independence from Spain and often resorted to violence. One such violent act would trigger this deadly disaster. Pan Am Flight 1736, now flying over the Atlantic Ocean, was crewed by Captain Victor Grubbs, 56, First Officer Robert Bragg, 39, Flight Engineer George Warnes, 46, 13 flight attendants, 380 passengers. Now to the second aircraft involved in the tragedy. At Amsterdam Airport in the Netherlands, KLM Flight 4805, also a Boeing 747, was preparing for departure to Las Palmas. In the cockpit were Captain Jacob van Zanten, 50, First Officer Klaus Meers, 42, Flight Engineer Willem Schroeder, 48, with 11 flight attendants and 235 passengers. After boarding, the flight departed Amsterdam and headed for Las Palmas. Meanwhile, at Las Palmas Airport, two individuals approached the terminal building and placed a bag with a time bomb near a flower shop. At exactly 1 p.m., the airport's reception received a call from someone claiming to represent the MPAIAC group, threatening a bomb blast within 15 minutes. The airport authorities immediately began evacuation, and just as warned, a massive explosion occurred, destroying a part of the terminal roof. All airport operations were suspended, all flights cancelled or diverted. Soon, KLM Flight 4805 approached Las Palmas, but the air traffic controller informed the crew of the bombing and diverted them to Tenerife Airport, located 110 kilometers away. KLM landed at Tenerife Airport's runway 30 at 1:38 p.m. Around the same time, Pan Am Flight 1736 also neared Las Palmas but was also diverted to Tenerife. As more and more diverted flights arrived, Tenerife Airport became crowded. It was a small airport, nestled in mountainous terrain about 2,000 feet above sea level. Due to nearby Atlantic winds hitting the mountains, clouds would form suddenly and frequently, drastically reducing visibility. When both planes landed at Tenerife, visibility was fine. But soon, clouds and fog rolled in, reducing visibility to as low as 300 meters, fluctuating rapidly. The passengers were deboarded to stretch and relax. Meanwhile, KLM chose to refuel at Tenerife to avoid delays later. However, while refueling, news arrived that Las Palmas Airport had reopened. Both flights reboarded passengers, but KLM's refueling had blocked the taxiway, preventing Pan Am from reaching the runway. Tenerife only had one runway, one taxiway, and a small apron area by the terminal. By 4:45 p.m., KLM completed refueling and began taxiing. Because the apron and taxiway were blocked, air traffic control instructed KLM to taxi on the runway itself to its eastern end and make a 180 degrees turn. Pan Am was also told to taxi behind KLM on the runway, but then exit at taxiway C3, allowing KLM to take off. But with visibility now very poor, Pan Am's pilots missed exit C3, perhaps due to poor signage or its location back toward the terminal. Meanwhile, Tenerife Airport lacked proper signs and radar systems, adding to the confusion. When Pan Am crossed exit C2, KLM requested takeoff clearance. This began a series of fatal miscommunications. The controller began giving KLM post-takeoff route instructions but never granted takeoff clearance. Still, KLM's captain thought clearance was given and replied, "We are at takeoff," or possibly, "We are taking off." The controller responded with, "Okay," but seconds later followed up with the crucial message, "Stand by for takeoff, I will call you." But this message was never heard in KLM's cockpit because Pan Am's crew transmitted simultaneously. "We are still on the runway." The overlapping messages caused radio distortion in KLM's cockpit. Pan Am, now unknowingly past C3, was instructed to confirm when they exited the runway. They replied, "Okay," but KLM had already pushed the throttles forward. KLM's flight engineer had overheard the Pan Am transmission and warned the captain, "They are still on the runway." But the captain, perhaps mishearing, replied, "Oh yes," and proceeded with takeoff. With visibility limited to just 300 meters, Pan Am's pilots suddenly saw headlights emerging from the fog. At first, they thought KLM was stationary, but then realized it was charging straight at them. They tried to turn the aircraft, but it was too late. KLM's right engine sliced through Pan Am's first-class cabin, breaking landing gear and sending debris flying. The aircraft crashed 150 meters down the runway and erupted in flames due to its full fuel tanks. All 248 people on board KLM died instantly. As for Pan Am, first-class passengers died immediately. Some economy-class passengers escaped through holes in the fuselage. A few jumped 20 feet to survive. Out of 396 people, only 61 survived. Even more could have survived, but due to fog, the control tower was unaware of the accident until another plane on the apron saw flames and reported it. Rescue vehicles struggled to reach the site quickly due to poor visibility. In total, 583 people lost their lives in this horrific crash. Investigation's cockpit voice recorders from both aircraft were analyzed, revealing the full story. The accident was a result of a chain of events: the bombing at Las Palmas, KLM blocking the taxiway while refueling, sudden loss of visibility, Pan Am missing exit C3, poor signage, and ultimately, KLM's premature takeoff without clearance despite being warned by the flight engineer. KLM's captain took off, making them primarily responsible. Aftermath and changes. The Tenerife Airport disaster became a wake-up call for the aviation industry. Afterward, radio communication call signs and procedures were improved, radar systems became mandatory at major airports, runway holding points and signs were enforced. Today, Tenerife Island has 2 airports. The northern airport is where the disaster happened. A newer southern airport was later built at lower elevation, where visibility is rarely affected by fog. We hope you liked this Zemflix video. Please like and share it. Thank you for your kind comments, and we'll see you in the next amazing video.